December 26, 1947. It's a black, white Friday in New York City as a snow cloudburst, as it's officially called, dumps 2 inches of snow an hour on the town. It falls hour after hour through the day and into the night. And as the streets are blanketed, a paralysis creeps over the city. Surface transportation halts. Railroads running into the city are stalled.
At 3:20 on the morning of December 26th, snow began falling in New York. By dawn, 3 inches had accumulated. People went about their business as normal, but as the day wore on, it began to snow with blinding force. Macy's and Gimbel's closed in the early afternoon. Pedestrians struggled through the streets. It took a crosstown bus more than 3 hours to travel 10 blocks. Traffic was soon at a standstill. People left their cars in the middle of the road. Snow clogged the switches of the Long Island Railroad, and subway stations were packed like sardines. Many people never made it home. They slept wherever they could find shelter.
With no traffic moving, New York seemed to be a city abandoned to silence. It was well into the new year before deliveries...
It was the worst New York City snowstorm since the blizzard of 1888. In the end, it took $6 million, nearly 30,000 workers, and weeks of digging and plowing to bring the city fully back to life. 77 people died because of the storm.
Suspense. Produced, edited, and directed by William Spear. Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, presents the last of a special series of Friday night performances at this hour.
In November of 1947, Roma Wines announced they were dropping their sponsorship of Suspense. As CBS began to sustain the show's cost, they indicated they were no longer interested in offering Suspense to an alcohol brand. For the next 5 weeks, Suspense shifted to Friday evenings, live, coast to coast at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. December 26, 1947 was the last of those Fridays. Director William Spear chose the comedy and musical team of Ozzie and Harriet Nelson to star as a husband and wife driven to despair by a hateful invalid uncle. It was called Too Little to Live On, and written by Robert L. Richards, who also wrote The House in Cypress Canyon.
That was a very good show, I recall. The House in Cypress Canyon was written by Robert L. Richards, fine writer who, by the way, I first met at the March of Time. He was one of the editors from Time magazine then, and he came out to the coast and got into this. That was a show that was a little different from most of the ones we did.
Too Little to Live On is a masterpiece in long-scene radio drama.
But tonight, Ozzie and Harriet appear for us as a couple who are driven to the plotting of murder in Too Little to Live On by Robert Richards, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
I'll tell you, it doesn't matter now. How do you think anything could matter anymore to me now? You should have let me die. That was the best way. That's all that matters to me now is that I want to die. That's all I care about. Being dead. I don't know whether we ever thought about it before this morning or not. It might have crossed our minds sometime, one or the other of us, I don't know. But we never talked about it, never. Never before this morning. And then this morning, everything just seemed to come to a head. Every little thing that had happened all those months and years just seemed to pile up at once. It just seemed as though this morning was the last straw.
Hi, honey.
Hello, darling. Your breakfast is there keeping warm on the back of the stove. I'd get it for you, but I'm already late with his.
That's all right.
You better hurry, though.
No, I'm not going to the office today.
You're not?
He wants me to stick around. His lawyer's coming over sometime today.
His lawyer?
Yeah, don't you remember?
I guess I forgot.
Yeah, his lawyer's coming over, so I have to stick around the house all day.
Couldn't you go over to the office and come back?
No, that's not the way he wants it. He says the lawyer's coming, but he doesn't know when. At least that's his story.
Well, maybe he really doesn't know.
Oh, he knows all right. Not that it matters much. I don't have any appointments today anyway. People around here wouldn't have their teeth fixed if you paid them to.
Well, they can't help it if they're poor, Dave.
I didn't say they could. I just said they can't afford to go to the dentist. And I'm the dentist they can't afford to go to.
I know. Oh, darling, if we could only move to another neighborhood, then at least you could start building a decent practice.
Sure, how? With what?
I know.
With Uncle Ed's money when we get it. At least that's what we've been telling ourselves for the last 3 years.
But couldn't we talk to him? Couldn't we make him see
He
that-
likes to see us have it tough. Likes to have us dependent on that money. That's all he lives for, and he'll probably live to be 100.
We've just got to be patient, Dave. Oh, there he is. He's up. I've got to hurry.
I think at least he'd spend enough dough to have some decent tires put on that wheelchair of his so it wouldn't bump around over our heads like a 10-ton truck day and night.
Well, I suppose we ought to be thankful he doesn't spend his money. In a way.
Have you seen him this morning?
Uh-huh.
How's he feeling?
About the same, I guess. He made me bring his lemon juice and water down and heat it up again. Said it wasn't hot enough. Willie almost bit me again.
Yeah, that mutt.
Well, the dog's getting old. I suppose he can't help it. Any more than Uncle Ed.
They could both help it. He wants it that way. He gets a kick out of it. Now it's got so we even have to kowtow to a snarling little mutt. He sits there and laughs.
We've just got to be patient, Dave.
One thing, when we get that $30,000, we sure will have earned it.
Dave,
Yeah?
what about the lawyer?
What about it?
I mean, what do you suppose it means?
What should it mean? He's always getting that guy over here every 3 or 4 months and going into some kind of a huddle.
But why should he want you here?
He probably needs us both as witnesses to something.
You know, he's been talking an awful lot lately about that orphanage over in Brooklyn.
Sure, and last winter all he could talk about was some foundling home for stray dogs down in Pennsylvania. He's just cracking the whip, that's all, to see us jump.
Oh, Dave, if he was to change his will now after all we've been through.
Oh, don't worry, he won't.
Oh, there he goes. He's something for his breakfast. Coming right up, Uncle Ed. Let's see. I hope his eggs are right. Get the coffee off the back of the stove, darling, while I get a cup.
Okay. Take it easy. It's all right, honey. It's only a cup.
I know it. Sometimes it makes me so nervous I feel as though I was going crazy.
Take it easy, dear. Here, let me get the tray.
No, I'm all right now. There's a pan of milk warming on the stove. Fill this bowl about half full and break up a handful of those little dog biscuits in it.
Okay.
Sugar, salt, pepper, cream. All right, come on. Open the door for me, will you, darling?
Here, I'll carry the tray.
No, he likes to have me bring it.
What's the difference?
Oh, don't ask me, Dave. Oh, the paper for him. Oh, you've got it.
Oh, I haven't read the paper yet myself.
You can read it later. Come on. Here's your breakfast, Uncle Ed.
All right.
I'm sorry I was a little late.
Well, set it down. I heard what you said about the paper, David. If it's getting so you even begrudge a little thing like that to a helpless invalid.
No, I don't begrudge it, Uncle Ed. Here's your paper.
So important for you to read the paper, why don't you subscribe for 2 of them?
I'm afraid the budget in this family won't stand for little luxuries like that.
When I was your age, I had my first $1,000 in the bank.
Well, things were a little different in those days, Uncle Ed.
I was a little different. That's what the difference was. All right, set Willie's breakfast down for him, Myra. No, not there. Over by his bed where he can get at it.
Yes, Uncle Ed. I'm afraid Willie doesn't like me anymore.
Here, I'll give it to him.
Hey, stop that! You dare strike that dog, David!
I wasn't going to hit him. I just wanted him to let go of my sleeve.
Poor Willie. Oh. Well, if Myra would take him out once in a while, he wouldn't feel that way.
I take him out any time you ask me to, Uncle Ed.
I forget sometimes. You want to do it without my asking. Well, you can go now. I know you don't want to stay any longer than you have to. Oh, Myra, hand me my glasses on the bureau.
Glasses? Yes, Uncle Ed. Here.
Oh, what, Myra, you fool!
Oh, Uncle Ed, I'm so sorry. Maybe I can mend them.
Of course you can't mend them. They're broken, you idiots.
Don't talk to her like that.
What's that?
I said don't talk to her like that.
Dave, please.
I see. Now you're trying to bully me. A helpless old man in a wheelchair. Well, I won't stand for it.
Uncle Ed, he didn't mean
I
anything.
made my bargain with you, David, and I intend to keep it, as long as you do. I've never complained about the care you've given me, although heaven knows it's been little enough. But don't think for a minute I'll stand for anything like this.
I'm sorry, Uncle Ed.
I'm afraid that's scarcely enough.
Well, it won't happen again. Look, I'll get the glasses fixed. I know a guy that can do it right away.
Probably take a week, and in the meantime, I'll be as blind as a bat. And don't expect me to pay for it.
No, don't worry. I'll pay for it. You'll have them back tonight.
Oh, this reminds me, David. Be sure that you're here when my lawyer comes today.
I'll be here. That's why I stayed home from the office.
Well, that's all for now. Oh, and I suppose neither of you's taken the trouble lately to find out which of my prescriptions need refilling.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking of that yesterday.
Oh, were you? Well, let's do it now. Bismuth's entirely gone. Look, entirely gone. You better get another bottle of iron tonic. Let's see, the drops. Yeah, that's all right for now. And the thiocyanate. You better get that refilled, too, while you're at it. Take the bottle of the bismuth, too.
I'll go right away, Uncle Ed.
Yes, you do, and you come right back. You know that I must have my bismuth not later than 20 minutes after each meal.
Yes, I know. Come on, Myra. I hate myself. Oh, take it easy, dear. It's all right. It's all right now.
Oh, Dave, I've tried, but I can't go on like this.
Oh, take it easy, honey. It won't be much longer.
Oh, we've been saying that for 3 years. We're like prisoners. We can't go out of the house together because somebody has to be with him. We can't have friends in because they disturb him. Oh, Dave, we can't even have a baby.
I could kill him. Sometimes I could kill him.
Dave, don't.
I mean it. When I see what he's doing to you, when I see him making a slave out of you, making a nervous wreck out of you so you can't even call your soul your own.
No, Dave, please. I'm all right now.
Sure, we made a bargain, like he said. But not this kind of a bargain.
Oh, darling, I know it's just as bad for you as it is for me. It's just that I'm here alone with him all day. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let myself go that way.
Oh, I hate myself, Myra. If I'd known I was going to be like this.
It's not your fault, darling. I knew what we were doing.
I'm not even a man anymore. I let him sit there and say things to my wife that a man wouldn't take from anybody on earth, but I take it. I take it and smile.
Oh, Dave, it's not your fault.
Oh, it is my fault. If I was any kind of a man, I'd do something about
Well,
it.
there's nothing to do, don't you see? I should never have acted like this. We've just got to be patient and wait, that's all.
Wait. Maybe another 3 years, maybe 10 more years.
Oh, honey.
Oh, what's the use of kidding ourselves? How do we know how long it's going to take him to die? Sometimes I don't even think he's sick. Sometimes I think he's just putting it on to make us wait on him.
But the doctor says...
He could fool the doctors. It's been done. Even when he does die, how can we ever be sure?
Dave, you don't...
I think he's just that mean, yes. Snatch the money away at the last minute and die laughing at us.
But he said it was a bargain. He said he
You
promised...
think promises mean anything to him?
Well, could he do it without...
Do what?
Change his will?
Well, sure he could do it any time he wanted to.
Without even telling us?
Nothing that says he has to tell us anything.
Oh, Dave, the lawyer.
Yeah, I know.
Today. Why does he have to come today of all days? After I broke his glasses and you hollered at him?
Yeah, I know.
Could he do it just like that today?
Sure. You could do it today, you could do it any time. We'd never know until he told us.
Oh, he wouldn't. He couldn't.
Why not? He might just as well do it anyway. He'll hold it over us in the last minute like he did just now, till we probably die of heart failure before he does.
But you said just a few minutes ago...
I know. I've been kidding myself for 3 years, but not anymore.
Well, Dave, what are we going to do? What can we do?
I don't know, Myra. I don't know yet.
If only something could happen.
Like what? Nothing's going to happen, Myra. Unless we make it happen.
Dave, we couldn't.
Well, we can't go on like this either.
We could tell him to
And
go.
throw away 3 years of our lives? The 3 years we've rotted in this dump? We've earned that money. $10,000 a year isn't half enough for what we've gone through.
Dave, I don't care about
Well,
the money.
I do. Anybody but him, I'd feel different. I don't have any more feeling about him than I do that dog up there.
Dave, you don't really mean...
I don't know what I mean. Listen, I've got to go over to the drugstore and get his medicine.
All right. Hurry back.
I'll only be a minute. It's just across the street.
Dave, What about the lawyer?
What about him?
What if he should come now?
Yeah, well, keep an eye out for him.
But what if he comes?
I don't know. I've got to think. Stall him off. Tell him something.
What should I tell him?
Tell him the old man's sick. He can't see him.
Sick?
Yeah, sick.
All right, Dave. Oh, Dave, have you got his glasses?
The next week, Suspense began a new hour-long format hosted by Robert Montgomery. The Nelsons vacated their Sunday at 6 p.m. time slot to take over the Friday at 9:30 position Suspense occupied here. William Spears' last date with the production was January 24th. He married June Havoc the next day. Although their CBS rating climbed to 13.4 that season. In the fall, Ozzie and Harriet Nelson left for NBC. Well, as the 26th of December turns into the 27th and 28th, our intentions turn away from Christmas and Hanukkah towards the place we're headed in Breaking Walls, episode 99.
Good health to all from Rexall. From Hollywood, it's the Jimmy Durante Show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Gary Moore speaking for Jimmy Durante, who has been hospitalized to undergo a few minor repairs. The pinch hitting with me as guest star tonight will be America's favorite bad little boy, the incomparable Red Skelton. So stick around as we go on with the Jimmy Durante Show.
Yes, 10,000 Rexall drugstores who carry the complete line of top-quality Rexall drug products bring you the Jimmy Durante Show with Peggy Lee, Candy Candido, Roy Bargy and his orchestra, yours truly, Howard Petrie, and pinch hitting tonight for Jimmy Durante are Red Skelton and Gary Moore. So let's give a large welcome to the schnozz's old sidekick, the star of Eversharp's Take It or Leave It, Gary Moore.
Thank you very much, Howard Petrie, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very happy December the 31st to you all. Gee whiz, here it is, New Year's Eve, and in just a few hours it'll be 1948.
No, not 1948. Don't let it be 1948. You can't let it be 1948. Don't let it be 1948.
Oh, now come, Mr. Truman. You'll have to face it sometime.
Next time on Breaking Walls, we finish our trilogy on the most popular season in radio history, with a look at the programming and current events surrounding New Year's 1948. The reading material used in today's episode was On the Air by John Dunning, Network Radio Ratings 1932 to 53 by Jim Ramsberg, as well as articles from Broadcasting Magazine, December 8th and 22nd, 1947, Life Magazine, December 22nd, 1947, and January 5th, 1948, and Radio Daily from the entire month of December 1947. On the interview front, Don Amici, Mel Blanc, Hyman Brown, Stats Cotsworth, John Gibson, Jim Jordan, Mandel Kramer, E.G. Marshall, Jan Miner, Vincent Price, and Bill Spear were with Dick Bertel and Ed Corcoran for WTIC's The Golden Age of Radio. These interviews can be heard at goldenage-wtic.org. Chuck Shaden interviewed Milton Berle, Dennis Day, Ralph Edwards, Virginia Gregg, Jim Jordan, Mercedes McCambridge, Shirley Mitchell, Carlton E. Morse, Hal Perry, Lorene Tuttle, and Don Wilson. Hear their full chats at speakingofradio.com. Johnny Carson was with Orson Welles on The Tonight Show, and Fred Allen was with Tex and Jinx on November 24th, 1954. John Dunning was with Roberta Goodwin Bailey, and Westinghouse interviewed Fran Carlin. Spurvac was with Vic Perrin, and Frank Brzee was with Elliott Reed. Selected music featured in today's episode was Sleigh Ride by Lloyd Glenn and his orchestra, White Christmas by Booker T and the MGs, Tomorrow Shall Be My Dancing Day by the Marlborough Cathedral Choir, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year by Andy Williams, Jingle Bells by J.P. Torres, I Saw Three Ships by the Norwich Cathedral Choir, I'll Be Home for Christmas and Baby It's Cold Outside by Jackie Gleason and Jack Marshall. And Christmas Is by Lou Rawls. Special thanks to our sponsors, Radio Drama Revival, the Fireside Mystery Theater, and a new sponsor, Hey It's Jolly Entertainment, for their audio drama, The Veiled West. Find them all on iTunes or at the links in their written credits. A special thank you to Ted Davenport and Jerry Haindages, two radio show collectors who helped supply material for this episode. They're who the large retailers go to. Ted's got a Facebook group, Radio Memories. And for Jerry, please visit otrsite.com. I've been visiting since the year 2000. I'd also like to thank Walden Hughes and John and Larry Gassman of Spurdvac. Listen to their shows on the Yesterday USA Radio Network. Breaking Walls episode 99 will wrap up our trilogy on the most popular season in radio history with a look at New Year's 1948. In the meantime, we'll bridge the month with Glad Tidings, Holiday Cheer, and interstitials from December. This episode will be available beginning December 30th, 2019, everywhere you get your podcasts, and at thewallbreakers.com. In the meantime, give Breaking Walls a quick rating on whatever platform you listen, especially iTunes. And if you've got some spare change, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1 a month by going to patreon.com/thewallbreakers. So, until the end of December, my name is James Scully. This has been Breaking Walls episode 98, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Thank you very much, and happy holidays.